And welcome everybody to another CIRF report, this one for the week of the 10th through the 16th of March 2022. And for all intents and purposes, it sort of looks like we're in fighter fun. So not fight or flight, thank goodness, but like last week, sort of in another extension, but with a little fight in there because there are some energies that are conflicted, so we need to be aware of those as well. Getting into our surf stance, getting ready to ride the cosmic waves. Let's go ahead and start with our summary slide. We have a nice big overlap in all of our technologies. The tropical astrology is obviously the biggest circle here. What we're trying to do is to try and triangulate for the biggest energy. So right in the middle of the astrology is this, Neptune, Sun, and Jupiter, all in a conjunction of, they're in Pisces. And so the Jupiter brings in optimism and fun, and Neptune brings in new possibilities and imagination and dreams, relaxing, escaping, all that fun stuff. And the Sun is lodged in between them. And that's the ego experiencing what could be really good times. That was what we had triangulated last week. This week, the blue circle is the I-Ching, which says joy. It's hexagram 58 with no change lines. So this really speaks volumes in terms of the transition between influence and solution. There is no changing that. So the solution is joy, and we'll talk about what that means in application. But for influence, it's a direct correlation to the astrology that I just mentioned. Neptune, Sun, and Jupiter all conjunct in Pisces. And then, guess what? The collective unconscious is looking at a little bit of fight, and that makes sense because there are some new squares on Uranus. Mars and Venus, remember, transiting and taking over for the Saturn square. And so just for a couple of weeks, we're going to have both Venus and Mars doing a square to Uranus. And so there is that contention, that pressure, that fight. But as you're going to see, the Dreambot is all sorts of fun as well. So I'm going with, based on the I-Ching, this overlap, you can see the green is overlapping. This is where all the squares would be in the astrology. But the Dreambot also overlaps where the joy is in the I-Ching. So right in the middle of this section is, I believe, we're going to be magnetized away from fighting, maybe just tired of it, and towards fun. The solution is how we should behave, or the recommended actions that we should take. And that's going to be towards the end. And it's sort of spelling out sort of like a possible crisis in the solution. And so what I want to prepare you for is, I think we're going to feel that choice, if you will. There's going to be those both options. But I think it'll be, based on this feeling, a natural inclination to sort of slide into that joy, slide into the positive side of things this week. So thank goodness, right? All right, let's get started, and I'll show you more about why I'm thinking all these things, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts. Hang on. And go ahead and punch the like button, no matter where you are on Rumble or YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed in your platform of choice. But if you are on YouTube, I recommend that you also back that up with a subscription over on Rumble, because you just never know. For example, some of the people that we talk about, or that mentioned some words, two people, not for me to say, and Terry F, or Tarif, I like to say, over on Rumble talked about PIR and how PIR brought a lot of you to this channel. And so I'd like to just do a quick shout out, like they did, to Phoenix, and for his original shout out on YouTube. Now later he got banned, like Tarif says. I'm thankful for PIR Phoenix, shared your YouTube channel before he got banned. Yep. And together our tribe is stronger. We'll seek out each other for truth and support. It occurred in a private conversation in a Telegram group yesterday. Our bond is solidifying. Thank you so much for your reports. My friend who listened, comment on your soothing voice. Well, thank you. We'll try to get smoother. I'm just too blunt. It's a blessing and a curse. Peace to all. Thank you, Tarif. Shout out to you. Shout out to Not For Me to Say, which I have another shout out for. Not for me to say as well, but he also mentions the LifeWave patches are amazing. The X39 and glutathione patches have helped me tremendously. I don't sign up for the distributor, but I just order for them from month to month, signed up for the membership pricing. So this is indicative. There's another Political Burn over on YouTube writes, I use the X39 setup. Good stuff. So a lot of people are trying this with great success. I have some other emails that have come in working with some of you individually with some other successes. For example, the silent night and the ability to sleep for good quality and good quantity now, which is so important on mental health and having good energy throughout the day. Another shout out goes to Together We Are One. I love that handle name. Thank you, Chris. You're welcome. Absolutely welcome. I'm doing this because not for comments, not fishing for compliments. I'm doing this because I feel like it's one of my life purposes and I love what I do. And I'm glad that other people get to benefit by it. All right, Kay says, such a great report, and I needed the optimistic outlook. Thanks for everything. I think you're going to find, Kay, that this is another one of those optimistic readings. And Northern Lady says, people are talking and watching for events around the 15th. We'll look at the 15th. Not showing too much different in terms of what, astrology throughout the week. And may or may not net anything on the 15th, but thought it was worth talking about this comment. Is this week of the calm before the storm? Thank you, Chris. And there was a couple of you that mentioned, I was thinking the same thing about the calm before the storm. Could be. The winner of this week says, this is not for me to say again. After this last week, I think I could use a lazy river to chillax in. And thank you for putting it into the collective. Thank you for all my CIRF family. Thank you, Chris, for all you do. You're a wonderful light wizard. Thank you. Not for me to say, with 5 up arrows and an extension. Shout out to all of you comments, because I could have just talked about the whole thing. Such great tribe, great comments. And it's because of you that this channel is growing. Let's get into the DreamBot. Number 1 word, fight. But look at the surge score, 29. It's not really all that significant because these others are, just shortly under, that's not the right words, just a little bit lower than that. It's not like 100 or 80 or something alarming. It's not an alarming number, 29, I'll put it that way. So fight is at the top. And there are fight words, but if you notice, a lot of these words, some of these words are multifaceted. Like you could fight at the gym, but gym could also be fun. So we have a blue arrow. So basically the blues are fun and relaxing and bedtime and eating and play and girlfriend, relax. I put in classroom and school not because it's fun and relaxing, but because that's the same mind state, or ideally in the classroom and learning, you're in the same mind state as relaxing and enjoying. So that's why I put those in segmented arrows. And then the red arrows are basically fight. Even court is in there. The boxing ring. Ring can be multiple words. Worried and push. All these are sort of yang and conflict and fighting. Which sort of makes sense when you start looking at the astrology, which we are going to do right now. All right. Here's our overview. And the big news here, other than Mercury taking some weakening aspects as he dives into Pisces, We'll chat about that for a while. Basically, he's in detriment now. So, weakened thoughts, weakened mind, weakened logic. And later next week, Sun will go into Aries. That's the spring equinox. That's a big item because we're starting that zodiac over again. That's where all the other things like Easter are calculated by. I think I mentioned that last time. But the big news here is we've got, remember Saturn and Uranus square? It was two very slow planets. Both of them went into retrograde for a while and basically extended that square out for a long time. But all the way through this debacle with COVID and lockdowns and freedom versus conformity, that was that aspect, and that has died out. Then that one, let me show you where that one is. It's right there. It is right there. And so this bar, this red, is already pretty light because we're getting further and further apart. But right here, right at the beginning of our week, boom, it ends. But unfortunately, Venus and Mars are starting their square. So it's sort of like a handoff, a wand, if you will, unfortunately. But look how short they're going to be. These are faster moving planets. And so it's not like we're looking at another couple of years for this square to age out. We're looking at just a couple of weeks and then we'll be fine. Okay. But along with that comes a lot of these conjunctions. Some of these reds are conjunctions. I can't change that on the software. I don't like it because it's not conflicting. It's not pressure. It's like a combination of them. And we have a couple of opportunities or sextiles here with these greens here. All right, let's move on. And as I look at Thursday the 10th, this is March 10th, this is standard time. This is before we change our stupid clocks. And I've got that noted here too, just a reminder for everybody, as well as some other important info. But on this day, Thursday the 10th, I can describe all these, and they're going to be generally good for the rest of the week, most of these. I'm calling the Sun, Jupiter, and Neptune in Pisces. You can see the Sun is actually closer to Neptune now and progressing towards Neptune away from Jupiter. But these are all in one conjunction, and they're all together. So you bring in the optimism of Jupiter, Neptune and Jupiter home to Pisces. And so things are not just spiritually connected to the Pisces thing and feeling the oneness and the completeness and the positive things that come with Pisces. But we have the specifics of these two all wrapped into one nugget, if you will. And it's the ego's in there. So the ego's optimistic, it's wiser, it's being able to imagine, and you can't create change without imagining something different. And that's what Neptune does. To its fault, it can show you some things that are just way false, illusions that are not helpful, etc. But it's that Jupiter aspect that brings just optimism to the air. And meanwhile, you've got Venus and Mars that are doing that square, just starting this square. It's picking up where Saturn left off, but these are different. This is the yin and the yang, or the male and the female, holding hands together, going through this pressure to change. It just finished. So this Mars-Venus energy, the combined energy, is a combined energy. It's not just two planets together. It's combined. And they just went through this transformation together, hand in hand, and just switched over into Aquarius. And so there's this discombobulation or confusion or whatever, like assimilating a new life or a new phase after finishing its transformation with Pluto, and only to just pick up this pressure, this growing pressure to change with Uranus. And Uranus, remember, is in Taurus. And so It's the way that you sense the world. It's the material world. Uh, Uranus is shaking things up in how we perceive and exist in the material realm, and that pressure then is to change perhaps relationships, or perhaps the way that we carry out peace. Peace is going to be the Venus, or how we perceive beauty. And in the context, or through the lens of Aquarius, we are looking at more knowledge, logic, disclosure. That's also togetherness. We got Aquarius is very concerned about collective affairs. And so all those energies, though, are pressured. And then we have Mercury has just gone into Pisces, and so it's weakened, it's in detriment. And we'll talk more about Mercury, but sort of take a pause with what makes sense. Things aren't going to make sense in this period of time when Mercury is transiting through Pisces. It's going to be hard to make sense of things, but it's going to feel okay, strangely okay. Imagining utopia. This is the alignment. Imagining utopia, because we're all in it together. We're all, just going through life and interconnected, and can't we all just get along? And so imagining utopia, and we all know the fantasy of utopia. That's can it really happen? Well, it certainly can't happen when you've got parasites running power trips everywhere. But nonetheless, let me not get it too political. All right, so those alignments that I just mentioned, those are going to stay present and only get stronger for most of them. For example, the Venus and Mars is at 7 degrees. That's square to Uranus. That's at 7 degrees off. And that's going to tighten. And as it tightens, all those archetypes that I mentioned are going to get more friction, more conflict, harder to synergize those two together. That could spell trouble for very passionate relationships, but it doesn't have to. And you don't have to fall prey to this conflict, this pressure to change. You can hop off board and just go into your imagination. I wouldn't put too much logic to it. That's Mercury and Pisces. And I would just let your ego and your identity just sort of float around in this positivity and wisdom and trust. All right, Saturday, the 12th is much the same. We now have a nice trine over to the emotions. The moon is transiting home right now in Cancer, and is the mother. Mother is feeling nurtured through this imagination of utopia. So it's even more positive here. Now, after Saturday, so this is Saturday the 12th, that night, you're going to do this stupid time change thing. I've heard a podcast. I don't have the link or anything for this, but I do remember some startling statistics. Don't remember the actual numbers, but the gist of it is car wrecks, heart attacks, strokes, all those kinds of things tick up a meaningful amount the day after a time change. And so remember that everyone else is going through this shift in circadian rhythm, and it's a safety hazard. So make sure you're paying attention. Look, you've also got Mercury in Pisces. So Mercury is local travel. And so this is your commute. This is your commute to work. And so by Monday, even though most of you will change your clocks on Sunday. And, maybe some of you will sleep in and have plenty of sleep and have no problem. But that still doesn't guarantee that you're out of the woods in terms of safety, because everyone else is going through this same BS, right? We're all changing our clocks. And I suppose there's one section left. I grew up in a place where you didn't have to change the clocks. And then I moved out to the only other place in Phoenix, Arizona, West Arizona, I think, where they don't change their clocks either. I don't know if they still do or not, but Indiana doesn't do that anymore. So just about everywhere changes their clocks. I think it's the dumbest thing ever. If you can explain it for me, I'll be more than happy to open my mind to this whole time change thing. But it's a safety issue at this point, and I don't see the utility for. Doesn't extend any daytime. Anyway, all right, let's get back to astrology. On Sunday, we have the exact conjunction. That's why I put this here. And this is 5:42. This is while the times are changing, basically. In the wee hours of the evening, of the night, the clocks are changing. And as that's happening, sun is in a complete fantasy. And that makes sense because you're probably dreaming, or most of us will be dreaming about that time. And hopefully, check this out. See if they're either wise, instructive, very spiritual, or just fun. Fun dreams. I wonder if you'll have fun dreams. I hope you do. And so just another reminder, even though you've changed your clocks on the day prior, your body's still adapting on Monday morning. And so be aware of safety hazards for this. Stress ticks up. Anytime you adapt, that is an element of stress. And stress is anxiety. And anxiety isn't bad, but chronic anxiety is hazardous to your health. All right. Now we've got a T-square on Uranus because the moon is making its square. And of course, you've got the Venus and Mars square, that they are around 5 to 6 degrees away from a perfect square. So we're getting tighter, but you can see that it's moving fast. But a T-square on Uranus is sort of a trap to change. If there's this need, this pressure to change, it could be you're being trapped in it. And the idea is to get out of that. If you look at this I'm sorry, but I have to disregard that because I was about to put a misnomer out, and I don't want to do that. So shifting to the opportunity, or this sextile, this is new. Pluto, sextile, Sun. Sun is 2 degrees now past, or a degree and a half past Neptune, but still in a conjunction with Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, has still this imagining utopia, sort of a sense to it, with an opportunity of Pluto. And so this is the whole gist of the title. Remember I put the word flight is crossed out in the title. And so it's fight or fun. And this is sort of what we have here. So you've got the fight with the Mars and Venus and Uranus in a square. And you've got the sun just in a positive imagination. But the opportunity is with fear itself. And why do people fight? Sometimes they fight out of fear. Well, this is that fear, but with an opportunity. And so it's all going to make sense when we get to the solution slide, but there's these poles on both sides. I want you to see, though, that there's more of an opportunity here than anything else. Pluto feels powerful, deeply powerful, but it can feel like the end, like the destroyer. It'd be destroying everything you had. And how do you see the opportunity in that? Sort of a paradox. And I'm going to talk about that paradox as we get closer to the solution. But this is an opportunity for superego because you've got the sun in Pisces. And so we got spiritually transcendent. So we're looking at more of like the oversoul or the superego or the higher self with an opportunity of this inner power, the Pluto, inner power, the tiny little planet, the subconscious. And through the subconscious, we get to the superconscious, according to somebody like Edgar Cayce or Henry Reed. and others. I think Carl Jung had a version of that in here too. But there's an opportunity for superego to really accelerate purposeful living, but the purpose that you came here on this planet to do, like guidance. There's a opportunity here for a fun-based, optimistic, wise guidance from Oversoul, sort of like a gateway here starting on the 14th, Monday, while this T-square is going on. So if you feel the pressure to change, hopefully you can be aware of that and divert yourself over to this super ego. It's hidden. It's quiet. It's like on the subconscious realm, because we're talking about the identity layer and the subconscious. So it's hidden in there. And all the attention's over on change, and we got to do this and got to do that and adapt and all that. Let's get to the super ego. It's a spiritual opportunity right here. Tuesday the 15th. Here's an interesting layout. You have Uranus that is in detriment, and you've got Mercury in detriment, and they're in a sextile together. So this is the weakened state of the mad scientist has an opportunity with the weakened logic. And so obviously I just divert you back over here to the Sun, Neptune, and Jupiter, but also this sextile to the superego. So it sort of unlocks things, gives you an out. This pressure to change from Venus and Mars, the pressure, the squares, to change, that pressure has an outlet to this weakened area. So it sort of diffuses that tension and it magnetizes you back towards the next dominant energy, which is Sun, Neptune, and Jupiter. So real cool how this astrology is really directing you back towards something pleasant, joy, fun, everything Jupiter. Wednesday, the 16th, March 16th, we're less than 3 degrees away. So we're almost halfway done here with this. So we're only looking at a couple weeks of tension. And then we have some other squares coming up through April and May. We have a T-square somewhere around July 4th. I know you guys are tired of these conflicts, but they're going to be much shorter lived than what we saw in the last year and a half. Let's get rid of that and let's talk about the main influence. It should also say this is also the solution. Because there's no change lines, we apply the 58 to both the influence triangulation and the solution triangulation. So as I read this, the red is representing the influence, and it's supposed to be green, but it looks blue, I think. The blue is going to be the solution. I'm going to read the reds first. Happiness is rising from within and spreading out into the world. Joy comes into the world through gentle means, but springs from a solid sense of self. The power of joy should not be underestimated. True joy is a beacon in the world. Being so rare, its presence is an indication of good fortune now and in the future. When you receive development unchanging, you may be feeling that events should be moving more quickly, and you can feel impatient. All right, so now we're going to transition towards the solution. So we're going to read this, the solutions of the behaviors part of the hexagram 58. Both the upper and lower trigrams of development show a tranquil, patient, and meditative attitude. The message is that patience is the only way to achieve your goal. It is not that you need to stop any action. You should work diligently, but know that progress will go slowly. Whatever the question, a conservative and practical approach on a traditional path would lead to success. In other words, just keep on. If you need to keep going, this isn't like last week, we just sort of take a break from everything and relax. It's not a work hard. It's not expect a lot out of this week. And let's continue down through our solution. We we choose the Sun and Neptune together as the dominant energy. It takes us to hexagram 36, and it's right on the edge of Aquarius. And so the first part of the week is definitely in Aquarius, Sidereal Aquarius. And the second half of the week, because this was on Saturday, I believe, the second half of the week could be Pisces, or you're not wrong to just stay with that Aquarian energy because it is well suited for the overall triangulation of the solution. The rave says resistance. It is the darkening of the light that could be looked at with a very curious perception, but it's resistance, the energy and determination to persevere in the face of opposition, the emotional power to handle crisis. This is where I was starting to mention that there's a possibility that another crisis begets the darkening of the light. The risk here is an over-principled resistance that, rather being selective in resistance and thus less at risk, will remain normal patterns and incur opposition, a resistance to change that will always bring crisis. Okay, so we have a lot packed in here. The rave didn't know that we are having a astrological layout that sort of looks like resistance, the T-square on Uranus. So as I go up here, this is surprising to me how it focuses on this area here, Uranus and Taurus. Remember, this is Monday the 14th, the T-square on Uranus. Remember Northern Lady? She said people expecting things to happen on Tuesday the 15th. I think that's close enough on this T-square that brings together some possibilities of crises, a certain kind of crises. All right, let's not go too far. Let's just get into, just to give you enough to wet your palate for the solution slide. Here we go. First, I think you're going to be magnetized to fun. I think if you just sort of let go and notice the big picture, I think you're going to feel wanting at least to have more fun. The I-Ching member says happiness is rising within and spreads outward. We start to feel more like our true selves. And so effortlessly, higher self within emanates outward. Remember the sextile with Pluto. This is the higher self. It naturally expresses. And what you have to do is stay out of fear so that higher self or that soul or that inner wisdom naturally just starts coming out. Synchronicity is more commonplace. Might feel more surreal. Remember Neptune, but this time in a very good way. All right. Here's the solution triangulation. We have 58 is joy. It says basically not reactive. Don't have so much reactive attitudes. You have to have patience. Remember that. Don't expect a whole lot this go around this week. Don't expect to get a lot of progress done. And celebratory periods typically net little in accomplishments. And then we have the rave. It was a darkening of the light, determination to endure and persevere, the power to handle crisis. Those two seem to be non-compatible, right? So far? Well, I'm going to discuss that. And then you have the Sidereal Aquarius. We've been talking about that several weeks now, so you should already know what that would mean for our behavioral component for Sidereal. So here it is, overall triangulation. Although they seem like incompatible recommendations for our solution, like you have celebratory joy on the one hand, but then persevering and crisis on the other. So first, it appears that extremes of emotional release are to be expected this week. Imagine how something very positive, that's the joy, could be looked at or considered to be a crisis. There's lots of these examples, and one example could be a mass awakening. Some of you will say, finally. And there's a lot of joy there, but imagine how many, what the symptom of that or the layout of that, or how people are going to respond and react to that. That could be looked at as a crisis, definite crisis. And that's just an example. I don't know if that's what we're looking at here, but certainly is a possibility. The rave instructs us to be determined, to endure and persevere through the crisis. The I-Ching's behavioral component mirrors the Aquarian solution. Remain tranquil with non-reactive attitudes. This doesn't mean to dissociate. Dissociating is when you sort of take your awareness and depart, and you go somewhere else in the mind. That's not that. We're not repressing either. We're not trying to pretend like we're not affected emotionally by this crisis, and we're not ignoring. And we don't want to be ignoring the joyful sensations either, but we don't want to lose our identity in them, if that makes sense. I'm going to be that Aquarian stance from it, this small amount of distance up in the stadium, just watching it play out, not really emotionally involved, but noticing your emotions too, not dissociating from those, and then reacting consciously, being very mindful. The Aquarian is the natural observer who can see both the joy and the crisis, even if they happen simultaneously. Later in the CIRF week, if you choose the Pisces solution, because it does transit into Pisces, the sun does, be aware. Okay, let me make sure I spell that out. We're talking sidereal. And so the sun, halfway through the week, is going to go from sidereal Aquarius into sidereal Pisces. And therefore, your solution, if you're purist here, you're going to change your behavior based on Pisces. But be aware that if you do that, the tendency to dive in emotionally and probably way too deep in this is a possibility. It's a self-sacrificing sort of a stance, but it's self-sacrificing in that it's a good thing to self-sacrifice. Just don't do it too much. Reduce your expectations about getting stuff done, and remember to see the big picture. That's going to be good for if you just keep the Aquarian sort of stance all week, or even if you go into the Pisces, is remember to see the big picture. I think Aquarian does a better job at that, and reduce your expectations about getting stuff done. I think that Aquarians are probably better at that, but they have their own separate challenges with that. Okay, well, that's it. What do y'all think? What is your opinion? No. One more thing that I forgot to mention is this phrase that you can use, this mantra, if you'd like to. It says, I easily observe the full picture and am determined. I remain determined. So it's not about getting back on your laurels. It's not about just going all out and celebrating. It's about seeing both of those sides and really appreciating all the sensations that you have, being engaged enough to go through this period of time without dissociating, but also don't forget to celebrate. Don't forget to express the joy, because joy does transfer out to your environment and into others too. It's infectious. All right, everybody. I appreciate every single one of you. And hopefully we get this world all turned around, huh? Right on. All right, everybody. Be well. Be safe. Don't forget to change your clocks. But pay attention. Okay? Be healthy. Be safe. And we will see you next week. Cheers.